Yes, folks, the data is in. The data is in. Who's excited? I'm excited. It was a lot of work, but we got there. Oh, we did. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome, welcome. Welcome all. Alrighty. How's everybody doing? Why isn't the chat loading up? Let's see what's going on there. If I reload this. Chat should be showing. There we go. That should be good. Sweet. Oh, yo, yo, yo. I feel like the YouTube live stream screen or window is different today. Oh well. Not like what I put out there, but YouTube's platform looks weird. Oh well. There's only one group to blame. The group that controls it all. Well, here we go. Here we are again. So I have compiled all of the data. We're going to go through the report this evening, checking this compilation. And if we notice anything, if we have to further check anything, see any errors, we will fix that. And then we will make 2.3, version 2.3, if we have to, available. Oh, yeah. Live on YouTube and X today. Welcome, welcome. So, let's see. Pangburn analysis. Professor Dave Farina's quote, everything, not just some things, everything is crumbling for destiny. And of course, I'm not as important, so I'm put in brackets. Screw you, Dave. And Pangburn. Audited version 2.2. This is the forensic fact check plus speaker routing audit, anti Semitism analysis, propaganda assessment, Gaza/legal update, business history dossier, plus court status audit, plus complete atomic claim registry. We have 103 atomic units in this report. 24 supported, 8 qualified, 53 material defect. Ooh, 11 on hold. We will look at those holds and non-ratables to make sure those are correct. So this is a compilation of all the work we've all done together on Dave's video titled Everything is Crumbling for Destiny and Pangburn. All the fact checking we've done, the normative assessments, the anti-Semitism checks, all of that stuff. And let's get into it all. There's a correction note here regarding the quote, proven true in a court of law graphic that Dave provided. This was missed in the first run of this report. Well, part 4 is still available for you to see if you want to look at it, but this report will also be made available. Okay, executive assessment. And we got a little Sonic running for you guys, Sonic 2. I got the Sega Genesis system when I was young, when it first came out. there's an awesome picture of me getting it on my birthday. And man, we talk a lot about the Nintendo 64 and how amazing the 64 was, but like Vector Man for Sega and Sonic, like, oh, games are so good. Let me know what your favorite Sega Genesis game was or is. All right. Executive assessment, the bottom line. This response video by Dave is evidentially mixed, but methodologically unreliable. It contains a large, serious, and in several areas newly strengthened factual core concerning Gaza, deliberate targeting of Palestinian children in documented cases, severe attacks on the health system and medical personnel, hundreds of malnutrition related deaths, a likely undercount in violent mortality, genuine state backed influence operations, and a substantial institutional case that Israeli conduct satisfies the Genocide Convention. Those concessions are not peripheral. This addition elevates them wherever later 2026 evidence is stronger than the earlier publicized report. At the same time, the response repeatedly converts those real facts into broader claims the evidence does not carry. Damage becomes proof that every hospital was bombed. Documented child targeting becomes a general order to murder children. Lobbying and ownership become collective control. An allegation in a court filing becomes something, quote, confirmed in court, while an on-screen graphic is identified as saying, quote, proven true in a court of law. A legislative proposal becomes current criminal law, and intelligence failure becomes deliberate permission for October 7th. The recurring problem is scope, mechanism, causation, chronology, and certainty inflation rather than wholesale fabrication. Your friend Thomas got Pong as a Christmas gift? Oh yeah. Yeah, Pong. Pong is great. Sonic all the way. Final version 2 registry. The frozen registry contains 103 atomic claim units. Of these, 85 are resolved empirical propositions, 24 supported, 8 qualified, 9 misleading, 29 unsupported, and 15 false. 11 remain formal holds and 7 are non-rateable. The 53 false/unsupported/misleading units equals 62.4% of the resolved empirical registry. 53 false/unsupported/misleading units equals 62.4% of the resolved empirical registry. This must not be reported as a percentage of every sentence, every minute, or everything Dave Farina said. Critical denominator safeguard. The 53/85 figure describes this curated and atomized registry of material fact-checkable propositions only. It is not a speaker-wide, quote, misinformation rate. Repeated claims were consolidated before atomization. Insults, predictions, and non-empirical labels are excluded or marked non-rateable. Unresolved allegations remain hold. Headline scorecard. Quote fidelity. High. All 76 parent claim clusters were locked to display transcript images. Direct audio remains the ultimate arbiter, where the printed transcript itself is visibly obscured. factual reliability, poor overall. Dave's factual reliability, poor overall despite a large supported core. 53 of 85 resolved empirical units are false, unsupported, or materially misleading. 32 are supported or qualified. Gaza humanitarian evidence, stronger than prior version 2. So the Gaza humanitarian evidence, Dave cleaned up some information in this report. You'll notice he made some minor corrections. So that will receive a stronger core. I mean, it's still full of misinformation, right? But this is noticing that the Gaza humanitarian evidence is upgraded from the version 2 report from the first video, Destiny Loves Genocide. So later 2026 UN/WHO evidence materially strengthens child targeting. So there's also been some recent evidence released. Medical personnel, starvation, and mortality undercount findings. Anti-Semitism. High content level concern in several passages in this video. The strongest findings rely on hidden control/capture claims, causal scapegoating, and ancestry concealment rhetoric, not on anti-Zionism by itself. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be with you. Please smash that like button and help spread this video out into the stratosphere. Propaganda intensity is still very high, 27 out of a possible 32 score. Certainty inflation, effective loading, motive attacks, and hidden control framing remain pervasive even when authentic evidence is used. Pangburn business history. Adverse core conceded, stronger insinuations separated. Some historical unpaid obligations are supported, but fraud, current insolvency, and future charity diversion are separate propositions requiring separate evidence. Destiny sexual/court claims. Legal stage errors are material. The spoken, quote, confirmed in court formulation is false as a procedural description. Pangburn also identifies an on-screen graphic reading proven true in a court of law. The visual wording is treated as the same claim family, not a second counted unit. We can see a representation in this graph. Supported is over here and qualified here, but we have misleading, unsupported, and false. All of these are what we would call non-factual claims. And the non-factual side is, of course, dominant to the factual side still. Here's the resolved empirical registry. Supported, qualified, misleading, unsupported, and false. We have resolved empirical registry, supported/qualified versus materially defective. Materially defective units are dominant in this report. And we have method scope and evidentiary rules. I don't have to read through all that now. Many of you are already familiar with the method scope and evidentiary rules, but this will be available for anyone who wants to look through. Actually, for the sake of this, I will go through the anti-Semitism rule. Anti-Zionism and extreme criticism of Israel are not anti-Semitic by default. Content is tested for collective guilt, hidden control, dual loyalty/capture structure, racialized delegitimization, and other framework recognized patterns using IHRA, JDA, and Nexus. Let's see what changed after the real-time audit. Several of the most important changes cut in Dave Farina's favor. So we're talking about uh, the new evidence that has come out recently within the last month compared to the last report that we did on Dave's first video. And when we do rate this information, everything is always open to update. But if someone is claiming something, making a claim about something that they believe has happened or they believe is the case, if they happen to be right in the future, that doesn't mean they had knowledge or good sound reason to believe that proposition when they had adopted belief in that proposition. I hope that makes sense. But let's look at some of this. So child targeting upgraded substantially. The June 2026, so recently, UN Commission of Inquiry found deliberate targeting of Palestinian children, including direct shooting of vital organs and precision weapons such as snipers and quadcopters. Medical personnel upgraded. UN investigative findings support deliberate killing, wounding, detention, mistreatment, and torture of medical personnel within a broader attack on Gaza's health system. Starvation/malnutrition deaths. The Hundreds Corps is supported by WHO reporting. The report no longer treats this as merely rhetorical exaggeration. Violent death undercount. 2026 mortality research provides strong independent evidence that contemporaneous official totals understated violent deaths during the first 15 months. So we will follow that data once we actually start seeing numbers. AI influence upgraded dramatically. An Israeli-funded fabricated think tank and generative engine campaign aimed at influencing chatbot/AI outputs is documented. The remaining correction concerns direct model quote training and guaranteed effect. Germany, the proposed 5-year maximum is real. The necessary corrections are that the measure was a bill rather than enacted law, and that the proposed offense contains an additional nexus to anti-Semitic violence / arbitrary measures. So that is the law in the books is real, but again, with so many of the problems with Dave's work on this, it's how he is presenting the examples he's giving to show, oh, in Germany, you won't be allowed to criticize Israel or criticize Zionism, and that's not true. There is a violence element, or the what could lead to could be viewed as a reasonable promotion of violence within that. But we will go through that claim specifically when we go through the whole ledger. Court/minor allegation tightened against Dave. The party alleged a minor theory in a filed brief, but the court did not confirm it. Later deposition evidence materially complicates the direct exchange claim. Anti-Semitism wording. The exact new video Nazi analogy is preserved. The report does not import the stronger wording from the earlier Dave video. So there will be changes in wording in how some of this information is presented. The document will be posted once we go through it today and we make any necessary corrections to the information. And it will all of our analysis documents are always open to update, by the way. So if you ever find any corrections, you can email me at travis@pang-burn.com. either myself or an admin will get in touch with you, and your information will be judged and looked at and fact checked. And if it is in fact correct, we will include it. We are thinking of doing also like a when we do update documentation like this, we will give we will attribute that update to the person who provided that information. That's what we're thinking of doing in the future. Am I lagging for you guys? I hope not. Maybe that's just here. Okay. All right. Okay. Gaza civilian harm and humanitarian evidence. The evidentiary rule in this chapter is deliberately too directional. Genuine evidence of Israeli wrongdoing is not downgraded because Dave sometimes overstates it. And a genuine humanitarian catastrophe does not license universal claims that exceed the source record. Oh, I see that. That is frozen. So some of my stuff is not updating in real time here. I don't know why. I don't know why that's not updating. The on-screen chat for some reason is being laggy. There we go. I think that's updated. You know what? I'm gonna fire my fans up because I feel like things are lagging. This might help. Which is weird. By the way, if I ever randomly just stop streaming, it's because my power has gone out where I live here in Oaxaca, Mexico. Sometimes the power can go out on me. It sucks, but I'm eventually going to be on solar. So yeah, it's the chat on the screen that's freezing. Like Restream is being brutal. Oh well. Maybe it's fine now. What up, everyone? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. All right. Gaza civilian harm and humanitarian evidence. So, hospitals damage. Dave's core claim. Oh, we're going to go through all of this actually when we get to the here. We're going to go through all of the claims. This is just kind of what changed after the real time audits. This will still be in the report, but let's go down to our actual claim ledger. It'll be coming up here. This gives you the largest topic clusters in the final atomic registry. Are we actually at this now? Let's see. Genocidal law, ICJ, and legal status discipline. Go down to just checking this. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, this is what I want to go to. A complete final atomic claim registry. Okay. But we'll go through this stuff. I just wanted to know that that was coming up. It's just a little bit organized, a little bit different because I did add some upgrades to this. So let's go to the anti-Semitism analysis. Now, this analysis in general is for this second video of Dave's. So the idea is not to migrate anything that isn't brought up in the second video from the first video. So here's the anti-Semitism analysis. So analytical conclusion. The response contains multiple passages that cross from legitimate anti-Zionism or criticism of Israeli power into high concern, anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic trope congruent content. The strongest findings are not based on the word Zionist alone. They arise when an identity defined category is asserted to control a vast media system, quote, take over institutions, hold government, quote, hostage, cosmos global anti Semitism, or conceal Jewish ancestry through regulation. Mitigating context matters. Dave explicitly says, quote, it's not Jews wholesale, it's Israel, it's Zionists, both Jewish and non-Jewish. This is a genuine counter evidence against treating every use of, quote, Zionist as a covert synonym for Jew and must be, quote, quoted before the control passages. It does not, however, independently establish the subsequent media/government control propositions. Framework triangulation. IHRA, JDA, and Nexus disagree at margins, especially over Nazi comparisons and some anti-Zionist formulations. They converge more strongly on classic hidden control and collective blame structures. The report therefore states framework divergence rather than pretending one definition ends the debate. So, and that's why we use three different frameworks. These are all three of these organizations are globally recognized as being authorities on anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic detection, and they have disagreements on certain classifications. So, in order to make sure we are being fair, we will reference which organizations the particular anti-Semitism in question is relevant to. So, for example, this claim, it's not Jews wholesale, it's Israel, it's Zionists, both Jewish and non-Jewish. This is low concern, exculpatory. Quote before the control passages do not erase this counter context. So this is just providing counter context for the anti-Semitism analysis. Zionists have an, quote, outrageous level of control, most obviously in the media. This is high concern. Finding rests on hidden control structure, not criticism of Israel. So this rests on hidden control structure, not criticism of Israel. This would be unanimously between IHRA, JDA, and Nexus considered high concern anti-Semitism, even though Jews are not mentioned. Quote, the vast majority of mainstream media outlets are controlled by Zionists. Enormous proportion of the media. So this is one of the strongest content level anti-Semitism findings. And this would be unanimous, again, across IHRA, JDA, and Nexus. Zionists take over CBS. Government, quote, held hostage by Zionists. High concern. Differentiate legitimate lobbying/ownership criticism, which is what we should be doing, engaging in legitimate lobbying/ownership criticism from hostage/takeover claims. Zionism is responsible for, quote, the lion's share of global anti-Semitism. So critique the causal claim, not the proposition that Israeli conduct can contribute to some anti-Semitic backlash. So this is considered high concern from all three IHRA, JDA, and Nexus standards. High concern anti-Semitism. This is blame shifting. Zionism is responsible for the lion's share of global anti-Semitism. Zionism is to Jewish supremacy as Nazism is to white supremacy. So here we do have a framework divergence. I believe it's Nexus. We'll get more information a bit later here, but I believe it's Nexus that treats the Nazism, Nazi Germany comparisons strictly, whereas the other frameworks do not treat it strictly. Disclose framework disagreement and quote the new wording exactly. Okay, that's the treatment. Israel ancestry test restrictions exist because they want, or they don't want citizens to find out that they're not effing Middle Eastern. This is high concern. Separate real mixed ancestry and real regulation from the concealment motive. So in this report, I tried to do treatment in this far right ledger. I don't know how I feel about having treatment as a category there, but I don't know. I'll think about that. Hey, everybody. Smash that like button when you get into the room. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. Love you all, even if you hate or disagree with me. Yeah, and I don't know why oh why my restream is freezing. Like, restream is having a problem tonight, but the stream is healthy. That's cool. See what OBS is telling me. It's dropping a few frames tonight. I don't know. Weird. Quote, they are the chosen people, so they can do whatever they want. Moderate to high concern, anti-Semitism concern. Use named actors if the underlying clips support them. Do not turn Jewish chosenness into a collective license to harm doctrine. So the treatment ledger here is the correction ledger, like what you should be doing. Here's the anti-Semitism content level concerned by locked passage. Here's the propaganda and persuasive architecture. Propaganda is not synonymous with falsehood. Authentic images, true casualty facts, real influence campaigns, and valid legal criticism can be embedded within a persuasive architecture that systematically amplifies certainty, strips context, moralizes disagreement, or attributes hidden coordination. The Pangburn Propaganda Intensity Index is therefore a transparent editorial heuristic, not a validated psychological state. Factual distortion gets a 3 out of 4 score. So here's all of the evidence. Factual distortion is just really going to relate to the misleading presentation of the facts or misinformation as well. So ownership / current status errors, survey collapse, ICJ procedural compression, hospital / school universals, minor allegation called confirmed in court and accompanied by a user identified visual of proven true in the court of law. The video also contains a large supported humanitarian and influence operation core. So we have a counterweight ledger on this side now. Certainty inflation, a perfect 4 out of 4 for propaganda. Repeated, and this is a big problem of Dave's, by the way. Certainty inflation. It's unbelievable. Like, That's why he comes off as like a preacher in his videos. Like he's got the gospel and he's going to deliver the gospel to you. Like, hey man, you're you're supposed to be a scientist, a science educator. You should be promoting fallibilism. Certainty posturing is the opposite of fallibility. Being having a fallible posture, having a openness to update posture. That's the healthy posture. That's the cognitively flexible posture. Right now, in this kind of content from Dave, he's giving the cognitive rigidity posture, like he knows everything. I'm not going to correct myself on anything. I know everything. I have the Bible, and that is my brain. So, yeah, a 4 out of 4, perfect propaganda score for Dave with regards to certainty inflation. Repeated all vast majority, unanimously confirmed, proven true in a court of law. That one's still funny to me. As long as they want, and deterministic motive / effect claims. Some claims later receive narrower wording inside the same video. Selective context / omission. 3 out of 4, not a perfect 4 out of 4 for propaganda, but still up there. Court allegations, or court allegation presented without contrary deposition / procedural posture. Visual, proven true framing despite no located merits finding. Germany bill without proposal / nexus detail. Ownership claims without closing status. The response sometimes acknowledges counterpoints and concessions. Sometimes. Conspiracy and hidden control framing. Dave gets a 3 out of 4 for propaganda. Bot farm attribution to critics. Zionist takeover / control of media and government. Totalized PR scrubbing. Pre-planned genocide consent manufacture. So there is real state influence, lobbying, censorship requests, and covert campaigns. They provide a non-invented factual substrate. So with some of the things Dave prevents, there is a factual kernel or a factual nucleus there. But then the question is, how is that fact presented? Is it presented in a misleading way? In a conspiratorial way? Does that fact have a hidden control framing? This is why Dave is getting a 3 out of 4 for propaganda. If there was less errors with regards to conspiracy, hidden control framing, mass extrapolation that doesn't really directly connect to that factual nucleus, things like that. If there was less of that, Dave would be getting a lower propaganda score. But emotional loading / dehumanization, a perfect 4 out of 4. Dehumanization is one of Dave's greatest mind bugs. And I really wish he would stop doing that. I think it's a really bad thing to put out there into the world just for him to be doing that. But it's also encouraging his audience, I believe, to act in that way. Like, people have been sending me samples of comment sections under my videos. I tend not to read comment sections very much. But I've seen some of the comments in the way that people, like, instead of just like giving their criticism of an idea or attacking the idea, they will follow it up with, "You useless piece of shit," or "Hey, you piece of shit, this is what I think you got wrong," or it'll just be the name calling in and of itself. And I think Dave's setting a really bad example, and an infantile example, an unwise example. If you really do care to change the world and change people's minds, you don't do it by attacking people, because in general, attacking people causes them to become cognitively rigid, closed to update. They will fall into identity defense, and then they will just want to defend themselves with an attack against you. So just cognitive science actually lays this out very clearly for us in our most up-to-date cognitive scientific modeling with regards to human behavior and how we react to this kind of um, emotional loading and dehumanization. So if you do want to change minds, if you do want to change the world, you're actually acting irrationally to those purposes if you're acting like that towards people. That's that can be demonstrated to you uh, for your bedtime story, for your morning breakfast reading, for all through the day. It's just crystal clear cognitive science. That's what goes on in the human mind generally when people are faced with personal attacks like that. So, in other words, it's a stupid thing to be doing. Not only stupid, immoral if you're someone who values maximizing well being for yourself and those around you. Ad hominem / motive substitution. A perfect 4. Oh, oh no, sorry, I didn't finish this. Sorry. Emotional loading, dehumanization, a perfect 4 out of 4. Frequent insults, cult, worthless, sociopath, sexual predator framing, graphic atrocity montage, ridicule, and moral binaries. Graphic suffering is sometimes directly relevant evidence rather than mere manipulation. Collective attribution / essentialization, a 3 out of 4. Zionist / media / government, quote, chosen people, broad Israeli official / population claims, ancestry concealment rhetoric. Dave explicitly says, quote, not Jews wholesale, and includes non-Jewish Zionists, which is important mitigating context. Ad hominem / motive substitution, a perfect 4 out of 4 for propaganda. Pangburn's income motive, hey, that's me. Business history, insinuations, destiny mental / sexual labels, repeated claims opponents are cowards / shills rather than engaging evidence. Some underlying business and conduct controversies are real and therefore not invented from nothing. Visual / quantitative framing, a 3 out of 4 for propaganda. 4-panel Palestine map category mixing. Yeah. That 4-panel Palestine map that is full of misinformation and misleading data with all of these mixed categories, and it's still just 2 colors on the map. Like, it's a terrible piece of information to be sharing around. And Dave, Dave dug his heels in and doubled down in this video on that map. Universalized damage numbers, survey category collapse, montage use. Many underlying destruction images and humanitarian statistics are, of course, authentic. So the index result, 27 out of 32, very high. This is very high propaganda video again. The highest dimensions are certainty inflation, emotional loading, and ad hominem / motive substitution. This result describes persuasive method, not the falsity of every underlying humanitarian claim. So here's the propaganda index. This is completely out of control. As a science communicator, you should be down at the 0.5 level here at most. You know, in an ideal world, you would be able to realize propaganda framing and you wouldn't engage like that. Where you start seeing more propaganda intensity in like science communication is things that are more politicized. So like climate change, for example, even committed by some scientists who are good science communicators, you'll see these propaganda intensity indexes going up for some of those topics. Even during COVID, some of the best science communicators with regards to vaccines, I was noticing some high levels of propaganda intensity index, which if they lower that, because they're actually delivering the correct information, the you know the scientific community in general are delivering the correct information. But when you have the correct information, you want to make sure you don't freak people out in how you are framing that information. Propaganda, human beings, if they're being given information, like if you're giving anti-vaxxers information that is counter to what they currently believe because they're an anti-vaxxer and they're scared or whatever, it's, they're ignorant on the information. If you're engaging in an over visual quantitative framing, that can cause concern in the person who's trying to internalize this counter information. If it's full of ad hominem, like let's say you're attacking anti-vaxxers or making fun of them. If you're collectivizing anti-vaxxers, I think the anti-vaxxer this is a good example. Engaging in dehumanization of anti-vaxxers. If you're engaging in hidden control framing, where there are controllers of anti-vaxxers who are in control of the anti-vaxxers, like treating them like they're under mind control or things like that. Certainty inflation's a big one, factual distortion. Of course, that should not be the case. But yeah, propaganda, these kinds of postures can really spook people. That's why it's important to identify it. MedCram was an excellent kind of pop science channel that was doing a really good job, I thought, of providing non-propaganda, really solid education during COVID and the pandemic. And I thought they were fantastic. All right. Pangburn Business History Dossier. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being with me. This section applies an explicit adversarial rule. Adverse facts are conceded where supported. Pangburn's first person account is presented as testimony rather than neutral fact. And historical business failure is not silently converted into proof of fraud, current insolvency, or future charity misappropriation. Integrated business finding. The historical record supports that the 2018 collapse, this was the collapse of Pangburn philosophy. If you aren't familiar with that, or if you're not familiar with my side of the story, which a lot of people aren't, I included it in my review of Dave's video, and that exists. I believe it's episode 3 of the live stream. But if you can always go to thewarofideas.org, and my article is there. I'm writing about the 2018 thing, which did leave some speakers out of pocket, suppliers, and a handful of ticket holders, ticket holders unpaid. And it was awful. It was a terrible situation. I hated every moment of it, but yeah, it's very complicated, and there were a lot of moving parts and different things that happened, and there are some mistakes I made in signing contracts I shouldn't have, and with people, but I outline all of that in the I do the full breakdown there. But if you want to, you can go to thewarofideas.org and read my article there, and there's other people that have shared their opinions throughout the years, and this was 8 years ago in 2018. Sam Harris publicly described substantial unpaid speaker obligations and hundreds of New York ticket holders seeking refunds. Pangburn's own later published account independently concedes approximately 30 unresolved New Zealand refund accounts. By the way, those accounts, this is something I actually didn't add, but those 30 unpaid accounts, when Pangburn Philosophy finally folded in 2018, and then we restructured and came back as Pangburn, there were people that we had, some people from New Zealand that we had followed up with, and they had said they had received refunds from the payment provider itself, which was Stripe. I forgot to include that, but I don't know if it's actually 30 who were left without refunds, but yeah. Penguin's own later published account independently concedes approximately 30 unresolved New Zealand refund accounts, unpaid suppliers, and an unpaid final Sharon and Bram installment. Yes. While disputing fraudulent intent and offering a detailed collapse chronology, these facts establish serious business failure and unpaid obligations. They do not by themselves establish theft or an intention to divert future charitable funds. So let's look at some of this. Dave Farina allegation / concession. Pangburn did not break even at Dave's New York vaccine debate. Pangburn testimony. The event's economics should not be extrapolated into a general claim of fundraising incapacity. The current corpus does not include a P&L. Dave's later statement that he had no problems with Pangburn at the event must accompany the claim. Independent evidence needed to recover. So, and something I did say in the video as well, I haven't done this calculation yet, but I'm pretty sure we are in the green from that event now, after all the YouTube revenue has finally come in and all of the additional clips, a lot of additional clips that were collabed with Dave's channel and Debunk the Funk's channel that we released after. So once all that revenue has come in, my general estimation is that we've either essentially broke even or maybe made a little bit of money on that event. But for me, that that event was more about, like, I thought it was really important to try to make an actual vaccine debate happen between people who were willing to do it, because there's so many people in the science community that are not willing to quote unquote platform anti-vaxxers. And Steve Kirsch and Pierre Corey are two of the most hardcore on the planet. And I had spoken to Dave, and I had said, I think we have an opportunity here. And let me tell you, that negotiation process, Dave and Dan Wilson were great. They were open to anything. They just wanted to debate, and they were like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. We want to take these guys out, in an intellectual sense. But the other side, they were so conspiratorial. They were like things is just like, we put out a trailer, and the trailer was meant to like get people hyped and excited for this explosive event and exciting event in New York. And it depicted, like, it was something like everyone was saying these pretty like heated things, and Steve Kirsch said something in a video, and then right after he said it, there was a quick clip of someone throwing a Molotov cocktail, and then it just went to the next clip. Like, this was a couple seconds. These these trailers exist somewhere. and you can go and you can compare the trailers, and and you can see where the Molotov cocktail was in one of the video. The anti-vax side of things said, well, we're going to edit our own trailer. And what they did is they replaced the Molotov cocktail clip with this doctor. I believe this is what I remember, but we'd have to check this. But this doctor, like with a syringe, like walking towards a child, which I thought was pretty funny. But they were blaming me. They were like, "Yeah, this is." It's like we can't move forward with this event. Like that was said so many times throughout this, and I was just like, "Why? What is going on?" It's like you're trying to make it look like Steve Kirsch promotes violence. And I was like, "No, that wasn't the intention of the editor. It's just we're trying to put together something that makes people excited, makes them want to come out to the event." And so, I mean, thinking back on it now, it's really funny, but it was very frustrating because, and it was like drastically an undersold event. Dave was promoting it really well. Dan Wilson, Debunk the Funk, was promoting it. The anti-vaxxers were promoting it as well, but like it was hard to sell a ticket. And also being in New York, our regular audience in New York didn't want anything to do with it. We had we had just been there with a sold out house for our Destiny anti-Trump debate tour. So yeah, it was weird. So um Dave in this video kind of made it sound like, yeah, he didn't even break even on this event. Well, Dave, you couldn't pull the audience. We did paid targeted advertising. All of you guys combined, the event itself just couldn't pull the audience. You encouraged your audience to come out and support the event, and I remember you mentioning to your audience that, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a sea of anti-vaxxers there, so let's make sure the audience isn't out of balance. Like you were putting it that way. um and yeah, so I don't know, Dave. People didn't want to buy a ticket to come out and see you debate, do the vaccine debate. Also, when we were getting close to the date, like this must have been a couple weeks, or it was very close to our vaccine debate. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and people were where we would normally expect a last minute push in a place like New York when we have an event coming in for ticket sales. It yeah, it didn't happen, and part of it could have been the Charlie Kirk murder and the hesitancy to want to come out to a live event, but we had to heighten security. Steve Kirsch and Kier Corey had their own private security. Dave and Dan were well taken care of, and we all had a good time, and it was great. So, Dave made an allegation that there's no reason to believe future ticket sales money would even reach the charity. And this is in reference to my proposition to Dave that we could almost certainly raise $1 million to bring Destiny and him together to debate Israel Palestine, and we could make a really big event out of it. And that is if we are all of our brands are behind it, and we're calling, we're encouraging our more wealthy contacts to make contributions to this important cause, and that money would go to helping Palestinian children. And Dave is, I think, kind of a cope because he's trying to find ethical reasons to turn down an opportunity like that. So he's going to say, there's no reason to believe that future ticket sales money would even reach the charity. And he's kind of alluding to like shady business history that I have, relating to the very complicated thing that happened in 2018. But Dave was still working with me anyway, knowing that. Yeah, also advertising to his audience to go to Pangburn's website, my website, and buy tickets for an event. You know, did Dave have reason to believe that future ticket sales would actually be allocated properly to the event, given the shady history of Travis Pangburn? Doesn't really make sense. But anyways, the charity proposal was a good faith. Well, here's my testimony. The charity proposal was a good faith attempt to raise substantial money for Palestinian children. The headline figures were estimates / aspirational projections, not guarantees. User disputes. Oh, that's me. I dispute any inference of intended diversion of those funds. Any proposed, independent evidence needed or recovered, any proposed charity, processor / escrow / direct pay structure, prior charitable settlements, if relevant. Resolution, unsupported, forward-looking insinuation, absent evidence of intended diversion. Yeah, so I don't think Dave's claim actually is supported by the body of evidence that exists. I have no reason to believe future ticket sales money would reach the charity. Why? You just admitted we just had a great event together and you had no problems with it. So that's at least one reason to believe. He said no reason to believe. All right. Dave framed it like Pangburn was caught not paying speakers and not refunding some canceled event ticket holders. Here's the Pangburn testimony. 2019 published account expressly concedes adverse facts. Most New Zealand patrons were refunded, but about 30 accounts remained. Some suppliers, including Trowlex, could not be paid. Sharon and Bram did not receive a final tour installment. Some speakers were paid late / not on the agreed timeline. The same testimony disputes fraud / theft intent and attributes the collapse to losses, contract structure, withdrawals, reputational collapse, and acknowledged communication / contract mistakes. Independent evidence needed or recovered, Sam Harris post, vendor speaker contracts, refund ledger, bank / processor records, user contemporaneous / public account. Resolution, there's a supported core that some unpaid obligation, a core regarding some unpaid obligations, intent and total scope not established by that core alone. The quote by Dave that Pangburn philosophy imploded and, quote, nobody wanted to touch this guy after that. Post collapse collaborations and events exist. Dave himself later collaborated on the vaccine debate and says in this video, I didn't have any problems with him whatsoever for that event. Reputational harm can be real, while the universal, quote, nobody remains false. I also gave all of the examples of our great hits that we've had since 2018, 8 years ago. You know, we've worked with Alex O'Connor. Him and Dinesh D'Souza was a big hit for us. That event, it went well. Like the live event itself, it was fine. Wasn't any kind of huge live event, but online, it did very well. Matt Dillahunty and Dinesh D'Souza, right before COVID dropped. That was a big event we produced. Then COVID dropped, and we couldn't produce any live events, so we were doing more online stuff. And yeah, and then we did some stuff with Stephen Hicks, Lawrence Krauss. Um, Recently started working with Rationality Rules, Stephen Woodford. Um, yeah, long list of great people. Nick Pope, and you can check out our website. But we've had a lot of great successes. Done some great work with Destiny in recent time here, which I'm very happy about. Um, yeah, there was a claim, and Dave showed this video of an ex contractor who was part of the um my side of the story for what happened in 2018. um Said he thought a vendor, another vendor, allegedly remained unpaid. It's not impossible, but there was no evidence provided for that. But I don't recall that being the case. But this person just said it in the video, and Dave was using it as like a piece of evidence in his video, which I was just like, this was like this person just like recalling things from their memory. They weren't providing receipts or corroborating evidence. Yeah, the source, it currently appears to be recollection slash testimony in the embedded video. We would need vendor identity, invoice, balance, payment history, etc. So the resolution for this is a hold. There was also a claim in that same video that Pangburn's credit card was often maxed slash declined. Yeah, I don't know how often that was. It seemed like it was being presented as though that was like um common thing. I don't remember that being a common thing. It's possible. I mean, we didn't have like credit cards that had huge balances on them. So if we were paying like, for example, um like a venue deposit that was like $6,000 or something, uh one of my staff members might be asked to pay that. They might use one of our credit cards that has a $5,000 limit on it, or because we had a card with a $5,000 limit, or they might use the $10,000 limit card, but another employee had been asked to use that for something else. So multiple transactions happening. And there might, some of the cards had limits on them as well, where you had to call in to the credit card provider to get the limits lifted for particular purchases for like fraud prevention. So it's yeah, it's much more complicated than some infantile thing like, oh, Penguin's credit cards were maxed and getting declined, and that's when we knew something was wrong. It's like, no, that would be a normal thing, but I don't remember that ever being like this. Like, it's constantly happening. We got to pay it off, and like, yeah. Um, Dave said everything Penguin Philosophy did was shady. Uh, I disputed the wholesale characterization and distinguish business failures slash mistakes from uh, dishonest intent. Like, and that obviously wasn't an accurate characterization up until where I outline in my version of the story of what happened. You you can identify the exact moments where I noticed things. All of a sudden, things were different, and it had to do with these contracts that um, I signed with Sam Harris. That typically we were engaging in this kind of, well, yeah, this is your fee, Sam. If there, if there was ever any issues with ticket sales for a particular event, he would be flexible on that, and I would be flexible. There were occasions where Sam made more money because things went really well, ticket sales wise. So that was our relationship. Then all of a sudden that changed when these new agents started managing for him. This one particular guy, I can't remember his name, but Struck me as a very shady individual. But yeah. Dave said I didn't have any problems with him whatsoever for that event. This is direct counter evidence for Dave himself. All right. Dave said Pangburn is tanking his business again by supporting / fact checking Destiny. I've lost some subscribers, but in fact, revenue has been up for the YouTube channel. That's a contradictory fact. I can produce that data once this month's revenue is finished collecting. So I don't think it's tanking at all. We have a lot of active events, projects, and programming. No solvency issues. Internal contradiction. Farina's statement that nobody wanted to touch this guy at all, or this guy after all that, is literally contradicted by his own later collaboration with Pangburn and his statement in the same video, quote, "And to be clear, I didn't have a problem with him whatsoever for that event." And this event was it's like a year ago, right? Okay. Destiny sexual allegations in federal court status. This chapter is intentionally procedural rather than sensational. The report does not treat a civil complaint as a conviction, litigant's brief as a judicial finding, a hearing as a ruling, or sexual fantasy as proof of real-world abuse. Here's the key correction. Farinas says that Destiny, quote, was exchanging pornographic material with a minor, and that this, quote, was confirmed in court. Pangburn also identifies an on-screen editorial graphic in the segment reading, "Proven true in a court of law." I still can't believe Dave said that. This is case is at the preliminary stage. Proven in the court of law. I still can't believe he said that in the video. He must be trolling. Like, that's his only excuse. Like, he could say, "Yeah, I'm trolling," but you can get sued for defamation for that. The supplied T1 transcript printout preserves the spoken wording, but not every visual overlay, so the graphic is logged as a Pangburn identified visual claim rather than falsely described as independently frame locked in T1. The court did not confirm or prove the proposition. A plaintiff advanced a minor theory in a filing. Later deposition evidence said the real person whose identity was used did not communicate with Bonnell and was being impersonated / catfished. Plaintiff later advanced an intermediary exposure argument. The court denied both sides. The court denied both sides. Rule 11 motions without prejudice. Therefore, both confirmed in court and proven true in a court of law are false as procedural descriptions. Pangburn live reaction response at approximately 5 hours and 7 minutes and 53 seconds. After reconstructing the Rose / Catfisher sequence, Pangburn states, "The court has not yet issued a merits finding declaring every part of that causal chain proven, but the sworn testimony significantly changed the evidentiary picture." At approximately 5 hours, 10 minutes, and 59 seconds, Pangburn further distinguishes amendment / pleading status from adjudication. quote, court allowed allegation is not equal to court found allegation true. You would think a professor would know the difference between those things. Just saying. Just saying. This is the correct procedural distinction. And even if Dave didn't know, if he wasn't so high, seemingly high on his own sauce, he would have done a little research. Just a little bit. Earlier in the same live segment, Pangburn briefly repeated the older, adult-only understanding of the dispute, then updated his analysis after reviewing the later minor footnote, deposition, and intermediary materials. The report treats the latter, more complete formulation as controlling rather than hiding the live correction process. All right, let's look here. Pleading allegation. I'm going to have to zoom in here, and I'll fix this for you guys too on the screen. How's Sonic doing? I can hear that music, I swear, in my brain. Well, I wish I could. I can imagine it. Like, but if I start singing it, like all right. All right, all right, all right. Everybody clap, clap, clap. Okay. Yeah, sorry the chat isn't working on the screen. Well, I guess what I could do is I could just capture this instead so you guys can see you're chatting on the screen. Let me just do this. Window capture. Window of the capture. Do that. Put you guys there. There we go. Pleading / allegation. What record we have status here, what record supports, what it does not establish. Complaint alleged non-consensual sharing of plaintiff's intimate video. The original pleading described plaintiff as having begun communicating with Bonnell at about age 19 and described the third-party recipient, Rose, as a 19-year-old woman. A complaint is not an adjudication. The original complaint did not establish that Bonnell shared pornography with a minor. 19-year-old woman. Notice how we have not heard anything about CSAM yet. Quick like a bunny. Quick, quick like a bunny. Quick, quick like quick. Okay. Party filing / contested assertion. Plaintiff asserted that after identifying the real Rose, her DOB was October 30th, 2020. 2004, and therefore she was a minor when Bonnell was allegedly exchanging pornographic content with Rose. This is counsel's factual assertion in a brief, not a judicial finding, that the exchange occurred with the real minor. Discovery testimony. As summarized in filed motions, AH testified she never communicated with Bonnell and that Solo used her identity/account to catfish Bonnell. She agreed Bonnell was catfished by Solo. The deposition does not by itself prove no explicit material ever reached AH through Solo, and it does not decide the case's ultimate liability. Defense motion/disputed. Bonnell argued ECF 139's minor allegation was false after the AH deposition and sought sanctions/correction. A sanctions motion is a party position. Filing it does not establish falsity by judicial adjudication. Party filing/counter argument. Plaintiff cited AH deposition for the proposition that Solo showed AH a handful of videos that Destiny sent via the imposter account and argued this preserves a minor context/intermediary theory. This does not establish Bonnell directly communicated with AH, knew she personally was the recipient, or that a court found this allegation to be true. This is currently an allegation. Court order. Court denied both parties. Both parties denied. Rule 11 sanctions motions without prejudice. The order does not confirm plaintiff's minor allegation, and it also does not adjudicate Bonnell's claim that the allegation was false. Court hearing, ruling not located in the record reviewed through August 26th, 2026. The court held a hearing on plaintiff's spoliation sanctions motion and motion to seal. Minute entry, order to follow. A hearing is not a sanctions finding, a liability judgment, or proof of the underlying sexual allegations. Post-hearing filing. Plaintiff filed deposition, transcript, expert report, and discovery responses connected to the Rule 37E2 motion. The filing does not itself establish spoliation or underlying sexual misconduct. The 5 women who have credibly accused Destiny of sex crimes claim remains on hold. The phrase bundles a number, a credibility conclusion, and a criminal law classification. This report did not recover a publication grade 5-person primary source registry establishing all 3 components for every person. Hold is not exoneration. It is an evidentiary classification. Final verdict. Factual method. The response is not reliable as a forensic fact check. Dave's response video. Its strongest contributions are often evidentiary rather than analytical. It surfaces genuine humanitarian reports, authentic influence operations, legitimate institutional genocide findings, and serious allegations worth investigating. Its recurrent analytical failure is the move from those real facts to universals, hidden control explanations, singular motives, and legal stage certainty. Dave would almost certainly get on the case of someone like Tucker Carlson or Donald Trump for doing the same. Anti-Semitism. Multiple passages merit high content level anti-Semitism concern under a triangulated framework analysis, especially the claims that Zionists control the vast majority of mainstream media, take over institutions, hold the government hostage, and cause the lion's share of world anti-Semitism. The report does not infer Farina's private mental state from those passages and does not classify anti-Zionism itself as anti-Semitic. Propaganda. The video scores 27 out of 32 on the Pangburn editorial heuristic. Very high. This reflects pervasive certainty inflation, effective loading, ad hominem / motive substitution, selective omission, and hidden control framing. The score does not negate authentic evidence of Palestinian suffering or documented Israeli wrongdoing. Pangburn history. Farina is entitled to point to the real 2018 collapse of Pangburn philosophy and unpaid obligations. He is not entitled to transform those facts into proof that Pangburn's current livelihood depends on destiny, that no one worked with Pangburn afterward, or that future charity money would probably be diverted. Pangburn's own testimony is relevant, but remains first-person testimony and is not treated as dispositive where external records are missing. Destiny allegations. Serious civil allegations and procedural disputes exist. They should be stated at their actual legal stage. The court record located for this edition does not support saying the minor exchange allegation was confirmed in court or proven true in a court of law. Pangburn's live reaction explicitly drew the same merits finding distinction. Person-level criminal or predatory labels remain separate from the existence of litigation. Yeah. I think, this is my opinion, I think Destiny would have a very strong case of defamation against Dave Farina. I think Dave's reckless extrapolations from the facts into claims that can quite clearly cause harm to Destiny's reputation. You don't have to demonstrate lying, like knowingly misleading for defamation. Some people were confused about that in the chat, but we did go over in the full analysis videos the requirements for defamation, and I think Destiny has a very strong case to go after Dave. Isn't this game good? So good. Like, I love it. Publication sentence. Dave's video, Everything is Crumbling for Destiny and Pangburn, contains a substantial and, in several Gaza-related areas, stronger factual core than the earlier Pangburn report recognized. And this is in reference to the first report we had ran on Dave's video. There were some corrections made, which is good. This is why we do multiple versions and we check the work. But Farina repeatedly converts that core into claims of universality, hidden control, singular motive, and settled legal fact that the evidence does not support. Now, here's the other thing. If this was a defamation case, I think it would be hard for Dave Farina to try to convince a judge or jury that he just made a stupid error in how he was understanding and depicting Destiny's court case. I don't think a judge and jury is going to buy that. If he's going to go in there and say, well, no, this isn't my field of expertise. And, the reason I said Destiny is being sued for sharing pornographic images of a minor. What did he say in the first video? He said, let me pull this up. What did Dave say? What exactly did Dave say? Let's pull it up here. What did Dave say? Let's fast search minor. Dave, what did you say? Dave said he is also currently being sued for non-consensually sharing nudes of a minor. That's what Dave said in the original video. Yikes. Yikes. One more time, Dave in his original video titled Destiny Loves Genocide, in which he tried to double down and be sneaky in this new video, in the original video said, he is also being sued for non-consensually sharing nudes of a minor. Now, the Destiny side is going to argue, yeah, he said he's currently being sued for non-consensually sharing nudes of a minor, i.e. child pornography, i.e. CSAM. And it's quite clear that this has nothing to do with the court case. If you read the top, if you read the title, if you read the actual information, it has nothing to do with sharing nudes of a minor. And what's Dave's defense going to be? Dave's going to say, well, I relied on a source I trust. Maybe that's going to be his best defense. So he'd have to be, I just relied on a source I trust. And then will there be questions about, well, are you going to make corrections to this public record? Or should Dave be ordered to make corrections to the public record? The result is a rhetorically powerful response with a very high propaganda intensity, multiple high concern anti-Semitic content passages, and a resolved empirical registry in which 53 of 85 curated atomic units are false, unsupported, or material misleading, a statistic that must not be misrepresented as a percentage of everything he said. Let's look at these high impact dossiers. The following dossiers stress test the most consequential findings by stating the strongest evidence supported for case for Farina, the strongest evidence supported challenge, and the narrow conclusion that survives both. These passages are intentionally redundant with the ledger in order to make the report auditable without requiring the reader to infer the adversarial case from scattered entries. So let's look. Genocide classification. So here's the strongest case for Farina. Strongest case for Farina. The institutional genocide case is no longer fringe. The UN Commission of Inquiry concluded in 2025 that Israel committed genocide, and in June 2026 stated that Israel continues to commit genocide and other atrocity crimes. Major rights organizations and genocide scholars have reached related conclusions. Massive civilian death, destruction, displacement, deprivation, statements of intent, and conditions of life are all relevant evidence. This is how Dave should be arguing, by the way. Strongest challenge. The International Court of Justice has not issued a final merits judgment that Israel committed genocide. Its 2024 provisional measures orders concerned plausible rights and risk of irreparable prejudice, not a merits finding that genocide itself was proven or even formally plausible. Institutional findings also differ in mandate, method, and legal authority. I would also add to that it's morally and epistemically responsible to wait for the actual organization, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, who is actually equipped to do this thorough investigation, for them to actually do their investigation before you just start believing that genocide has actually occurred. Because that case requires the hearing of the evidence and counter evidence that will come from Israel that has not been heard yet in court. because Israel has not given their evidence and counter evidence to any of these organizations to their claims and conclusions of genocide. So, conclusion, surviving adversarial review. Uh, Calling Gaza genocide is supported by a substantial and increasingly authoritative body of expert/institutional analysis, but describing the ICJ as already having ruled genocide plausible. This is what Finkelstein did, by the way, on the Hassan Piker podcast. The ICJ has already determined that genocide is plausible. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. But describing the ICJ as already having ruled genocide plausible or established as a legal stage is an error, or established as a legal stage error. The report therefore treats Farina's opening genocide formulation as qualified rather than simply false. Hopefully Dave's listening to this so he can take some notes on how to better communicate his positions so they're not propagandized. Dossier 2, deliberate targeting of Palestinian children. Strongest case for Farina. The June 2026 UN Commission of Inquiry explicitly found that Palestinian children were deliberately targeted and killed, and described direct shooting of vital organs with precision weapons such as snipers and quadcopters. This materially strengthens the earlier evidentiary record. Dickbag. No, I added the dickbag part. He shouldn't say the dickbag part. Strongest challenge. A documented pattern of deliberate targeting does not automatically establish the stronger proposition that Israeli soldiers were generally ordered to murder children as children. The report did not recover a general command order, rules of engagement instruction, or equivalent primary directive establishing that blanket proposition. Conclusion, surviving adversarial review. The deliberate targeting core is supported and is one of the largest version 2 upgrades in Farina's favor. The alleged general order remains unsupported. Gaza hospitals. Here's the strongest case for Farina. WHO reporting establishes catastrophic system-wide damage. By January 2026, all 36 hospitals were reported damaged, and later HERAMS snapshots continued to show an extraordinary loss of full functionality, equipment, and access. Notice how I didn't say all 36 hospitals are completely destroyed. Yeah, that's not a factual statement. Maybe I should send this to the professor. Strongest challenge to this position. Quote, every possible was damaged is not the same proposition as, quote, Israel bombed every single hospital. Damage can arise through direct strikes, nearby blast effects, raids, demolition, fire, occupation, and other mechanisms. Farina's separate, quote, 90% completely non-operational, just a couple statement is contradicted by WHO functionality categories and by his own later acknowledgement that about half could provide some service. The devastation is established. The literal universal direct bombing mechanism is not. The 90% / just a couple formulation is false. Medical personnel and the health system. Dave's strongest formulation. UN investigative findings support a concerted policy to destroy Gaza's healthcare system and deliberate killing, wounding, detention, mistreatment, and torture of medical personnel. This is much stronger than a record of accidental collateral deaths. Here's the strongest challenge. The institutional findings do not prove that every medical worker death resulted from deliberate targeting or that every strike on a medical site was unlawful. Hamas military use of some medical infrastructure is a separate factual question that must be examined incident by incident. Farina's core that doctors/medical personnel were deliberately targeted is supported, while universalized versions remain too broad. Starvation and mortality undercount. Here's the strongest case for Farina. WHO reported hundreds of malnutrition-related deaths, and famine was formally confirmed in Gaza Governorate in 2025. A 2026 Lancet Global Health study estimated violent deaths substantially above the contemporaneous official tally, supporting the claim that the record death count was conservative. Strongest challenge? Exact death totals remain date and method sensitive. Direct violent deaths, indirect conflict deaths, malnutrition deaths, and projected excess deaths are distinct categories that should not be added casually. A demonstrated undercount does not license an arbitrary large total. The hundreds malnutrition core and substantial undercount core are supported. Stronger extrapolations require their own methods and denominators. El Shifa Hospital. Here's the strongest case for Dave. Israel did not substantiate the sprawling, sophisticated Central Command headquarters at the scale originally promoted before the raid. The early visual and rhetorical maximalism deserved serious correction. Strongest challenge? The evidence did not reduce to zero. Tunnels, weapons, hostage/CCTV evidence, and U.S. intelligence supported some Hamas/PIJ military use of the El Shifa complex, saying the military use story was wholly concocted, quote, out of thin air, overcorrects the record. Israel overstated the scale of the command center claim. Farina overstates when he converts that failure into total fabrication. Dossier 7, October 7th. Foreknowledge, Friendly Fire, and Hannibal. Strongest case for Farina. Israel suffered grave intelligence and command failures before October 7th. Some Israeli civilians were killed by Israeli forces, and Hannibal-type risk-accepting decisions appear to have occurred in at least some incidents. Strongest challenge? Failure, warnings, and mistaken assumptions do not establish that Israeli leadership knew the attack would occur and deliberately allowed it. The reviewed record also does not establish that hundreds of civilian deaths were caused by Israeli friendly fire / Hannibal, or that Hannibal is accurately summarized as a blanket order to intentionally kill Israeli civilians. Some friendly fire / Hannibal core is supported. The hundreds scale and deliberate permission theories are unsupported or misleading. Dossier 8, paid influence, bots, and AI. Strongest case for Farina. Israel has funded public diplomacy, paid influencer activity, and covert or unattributed influence campaigns. The August 2026 reporting on the fabricated Hanover Institute provides unusually direct evidence of an Israeli funded effort to seed the online information environment for AI/chatbot influence. Strongest challenge: the existence of real operations does not identify every suspicious account as Israeli or prove deterministic control over TikTok, search systems, or LLM outputs. Quote, paid up to $7,000 per post is an estimate derived from campaign spending rather than a disclosed universal contractual rate. The influence operation core is substantial and sometimes underappreciated. The strongest defects concern attribution, ownership, mechanism, and claimed effect. Dossier 9, Media Control and Anti-Semitism. Strongest case for Dave. Pro-Israel donors, owners, executives, advocacy organizations, and lobbying networks can exercise real influence and are legitimate subjects of investigation. Farina explicitly says, quote, not Jews wholesale, and includes non-Jewish Zionists, which is meaningful mitigating context with regards to anti-Semitism. Strongest challenge. The response then advances denominator-free claims that Zionists have a, quote, outrageous level of control the, quote, vast majority of mainstream media, quote, take over CBS and hold government, quote, hostage. Those claims move from influence to an identity-defined controlling bloc without a reproducible market governance or coordination analysis. The high anti-Semitism concern rests on hidden control/capture structure and collective attribution, not on criticism of Israel or use of the word Zionist itself. Germany, ICJ, and ICC. Strongest case for Farina. Germany's proposal genuinely contains a maximum 5-year penalty, and the ICC genuinely issued warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant on a reasonable ground standard, including the war crime of starvation as a method of war. Strongest challenge to Dave. The German measure was a legislative proposal, not an enacted law at the cutoff, and contained an additional nexus to readiness for anti-Semitic violence/arbitrary measures. The ICJ controls its own timetable and did not hold that genocide itself was plausible. ICC warrants are not convictions. Farina's legal material alternates between genuine, important legal facts and serious procedural stage compression. Every verb, alleged, proposed, ordered, found reasonable grounds, adjudicated, etc., matters. All right. Pangburn business history. Strongest case for Dave Farina. The 2018 Pangburn philosophy collapse was real and serious. Sam Harris described unpaid fees, reimbursements, and hundreds of New York ticket holders seeking refunds. Pangburn's own later account concedes unresolved refunds, unpaid suppliers, and an unpaid final Sharon and Bram installment. Strongest challenge? Those adverse facts do not establish theft, fraud, current insolvency, dependence on destiny for income, or an intention to divert future charity proceeds. Farina's quote, nobody wanted to touch this guy, universal, is contradicted by later collaborations, including Farina's own later event, and his statement that he had no problems with Pangburn at that event. Serious business failure and unpaid obligations are supported. Stronger motive, fraud, and future charity insinuations require independent evidence and are separated accordingly. Destiny, the minor allegation, and confirmed in court. Strongest case for Dave. A plaintiff did make a minor related allegation in a federal filing, and the broader litigation concerns serious allegations about non-consensual intimate material and discovery conduct. It is therefore inaccurate to describe the entire issue as invented from nothing. Strongest challenge. Later deposition evidence said the real Rose did not communicate with Bonnell and was being impersonated / catfished. Plaintiff later advanced an intermediary exposure argument. Most importantly, the court denied both sides' Rule 11 motions without prejudice and did not enter a merits finding confirming that Bonnell exchanged pornography with a minor. Pangburn also identifies a visual graphic stating, quote, proven true in a court of law. That formulation is even more categorical than the spoken, quote, confirmed in court line and is incompatible with the located procedural record. The exact original video graphic frame is not preserved by the supplied transcript printout, so this edition transparently labels its provenance rather than pretending a frame lock that does not exist. So, the spoken, quote, confirmed in court claim is false by Dave as a procedural description, and the user identified visual, quote, proven true in a court of law is false for the same reason. No located merits adjudication proves the minor exchange proposition true. The broader minor context / intermediary controversy remains contested and must not be collapsed into either a clean conviction narrative or a categorical claim that no material ever reached a minor. The visual overlay is consolidated with EIC 069 and does not alter the 103 unit denominator. Okay, now we are to see. You know what makes the people the most angry? When they really, really, really want their narrative, their story, their picture of an individual to be true, and the evidence contradicts it, and they might be part of a culture that has been really trying to perpetuate that myth and try to make people believe in that myth, and they themselves believe in that myth. And then people start fact checking the situation and pointing holes in their pet story. And then they find themselves at war with the fact checkers, with the moral well-beingists. Isn't that wild? Sounds religious, doesn't it? Source quality and entailment audit. We don't need to go through that. Citation entailment rule. We don't need that. Oh yeah, this is the V2 correction and concession log. This is from the first version we initially ran. The first version is always a less precise analysis, it becomes more precise once I actually do the full fact check, play by play, and that helps inform my system. So Appendix A here is going to be the place a lot of people are going to want to go if they want to look at, like, qualified or unsupported claims or false claims. So let's look at this one. This was made at 0:35 to 2 minutes and 20 seconds in Dave's video. Here's the locked quote claim queue. Destiny's cult went absolutely apeshit over it and brigaded my channel harder than any troll army has ever brigaded me before. The bot farm output on my channel that was just thousands of instances of this dumb comment. So the atomic proposition here is that a coordinated or automated campaign caused the repetitive comments and brigading. The final assessment: repetition is not sufficient to identify bot farm origin, controller, or causal chain. So this is why this is treated, this first Dave claim that's unsupported, that's why that's treated as unsupported. And then this will also give you the source trail, the primary source trail. So you're going to get an audit on all of these. Let's find a supported one. He's responding to a Destiny clip here again in his video. He is actually trying to pretend that Israel doesn't pay influencers to disseminate propaganda. It is absolutely trivial, common knowledge that Israel does this. So what is this actual proposition? Israeli government-linked campaigns have paid social media influencers for pro-Israel content. Final assessment: FARA-derived reporting documents an Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs campaign through Havas/Bridge Partners. So this one, Dave is fully supported in making this claim. And this source trail, W20, once we go to the final source ledger, you'll be able to find what the source is. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, there we go. We good. Let's look at one that's qualified. The claim is project financed through Bridges Partners LLC, where influencers are paid $7,000 per post. Now, we're going to see the difference between supported and qualified. This would be a qualified claim because there is a chunk of fact in this cluster, right? So the proposition is specific influencers receive as much as about $7,000 for each post. Final assessment is FARA filings combine influencer payments and production. Individual rates were not disclosed. So the reason why this doesn't get rated supported is because the actual individual rates were not disclosed, and Dave is claiming that they were disclosed and acting like they are disclosed here. So it's still a qualified claim, but it's not fully supported. Now we find misleading. What does a misleading claim look like? This is at 6 minutes and 46 seconds in Dave's transcript. Describing social media as the most important weapon, acknowledging that it's the reason they arranged for a Zionist takeover of TikTok. So what's the claim? A Zionist takeover of TikTok occurred. Here's the final assessment. TikTok US is a multi-investor joint venture. Oracle/Ellison Oracle/Ellison participation does not establish a unitary Zionist takeover. So this is misleading. This is a non-factual framing. When we use language like factual or non-factual, this would be considered non-factual because it's a non-factual framing. It's not that there can't be some kind of fact that exists in the cluster, but it's misleading. So it's labeled as such. Then we get to unsupported. Here's an example of unsupported. Let's go back. Did we already see this? Oh, that's weird. Gonna have to record this. Oh, is this dealing with a different part? Let's see. Describing social media as the most important weapon. This is why we go through these reports, by the way. Describing social media as the most important weapon, acknowledging that it's the reason they arranged for a Zionist takeover of TikTok. Atomic proposition. The TikTok transaction was arranged to suppress. Oh. Oh, I see what this is doing. W7, W21. The TikTok transaction was arranged. So relating to this claim cluster, this was the insinuation that the TikTok transaction was arranged to suppress Palestine-related content. And the final assessment is ownership governance facts do not establish the asserted censorship purpose. What I want to do, let me copy this. I would like to check. Fact checking. Someone said the worst part is Dave didn't need to be dishonest. The Palestine stuff is horrific enough without lying about it. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, and look, it's hard to know what is dishonest. What, some things signal dishonesty more than others. I think there's also like good reason to believe that Dave just is relying on a very narrow structure of sources that aren't giving the full picture and that are delivering propaganda to him. I think there's a lot of evidence of that as well. There we go. There we go. Perfect. We'll make that a little more clear. So this is another unsupported claim from Dave. October 7th, since that was the most crucial period for manufacturing consent from the American public for a pre-planned genocide America would be funding. So the proposition here, the influence campaign, was designed to manufacture U.S. consent for a genocide already planned before October 7th. The final assessment here is that evidence of public diplomacy does not itself establish pre-October 7th genocidal planning. So that is just not supported by the available body of evidence. I'm also going to give one for this next. There we go. Check, check. No, I'm not muted. Am I? You guys can't hear me? If you can hear me fine, type 1. Check, check. Oh, weird. Thank you. Okay. Let's keep going. Another qualified, supported, unsupported, another unsupported claim by Dave. An investigation by the Al-Azhar Media Institute revealed hundreds of accounts created shortly after October 7th. Indicates that they aren't individual accounts, but that they're part of an organized effort. No one took responsibility for this, but Israel has admitted to using bot farms in the past. So the proposition here is that Israel operated the specific fake account network described by the Al Jazeera investigation. The video itself says no one took responsibility and bridges from the network to Israel's separate history of bot operations. So, one more time. The video itself says no one took responsibility and bridges from the network to Israel's separate history of bot operation. So that's why it's not supported. It's just misleading. The bleeping map, the map, not the map. Oh, I think that's I think this is Destiny's. Yeah. That's another thing I want to look at. Not the map. Illustrates. Oh, here we go. Yeah. The fucking map. The map. Not the map. Not the map that illustrates how well over half of Palestine was taken to form Israel, and then most of what they were left with has been slowly stolen from them through settlements. The proposition is the common 4-panel map accurately depicts Palestinian land ownership / control shrinking to Israeli ownership. The panels mix sovereignty, private ownership, proposed state allocation, military / political control, and administrative zones. So the map is greatly misleading. So that's the map that Dave keeps bringing up is not giving you a high resolution picture of really anything. As the full picture. There are some kernels of truth, kernels of facts, but we went through each panel and dealt with all of these specific issues in the full walkthrough we did. So Dave is talking to Destiny about what he said about him. That you said I used Nazi rhetoric, which is essentially calling me a Nazi / so you were calling me a Nazi, which is slander. So this idea that Destiny directly labeled Dave a Nazi. Criticism of neo-Nazi like rhetoric is not identical to directly saying Dave is a Nazi. And I don't know if later in the yeah, but I think this is dealing with the earlier part. So Dave still believes that he was calling him a Nazi, which is maybe later. Oh no, you have. Okay, thanks. My wifey was asking me if I want any tacos. Yeah, I did a whole hour on that map. on multiple occasions. Unsupported. We're just destroying entire city blocks with zero regard for who they killed, because I already knew back then that this was what they had in mind, which is easily confirmed by looking at the sea of rubble that is Gaza today. Whoa, a lot of problems there. The proposition is later destruction proves prior genocidal intent. Good thing Dave is not sitting on the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. Mass destruction is evidence relevant to intent, but does not alone prove what decision makers intended at an earlier date. That's obvious. That's basic logic. Dave. Dave made the claim Israel has bombed every single hospital in Gaza. They've bombed every single hospital in Gaza, every single one. So the proposition is each of Gaza's hospitals was bombed by Israel. WHO, here's the final assessment. WHO reported in January 2026 that all 36 hospitals were damaged and only half were partially functional. WHO's July 2026 HERAMS update remained the current operational status source. Damage can result from strikes, raids, demolition, nearby blast effects, fire, occupation, or other mechanisms. The reviewed WHO data do not establish the literal bombed every single hospital formulation. Now we have a false claim. Dave says 90% are completely non-operational. Just a couple are operating with highly limited capacity. So the claim here is about 90% of Gaza hospitals were completely non-operational at the relevant time. WHO reported in January 2026 about half of all 36 hospitals were partially functional. On May 22nd, 2025, WHO reported 19 of 36 operational. The July 2026 HERAMS report is the latest status series. 90% completely non-operational is not supported by these WHO categories. So that claim by Dave is just outright false. Another false claim. Israeli officials, legislators, military personnel, decision makers, they all state this openly, the desire to completely wipe out Palestinian population. So the atomic proposition is Israeli officials, legislators, military personnel, and decision makers, quote, all openly desire to wipe out Palestinians. The literal universal is contradicted by the diversity of statements from positions among those groups. So it's just when instead of targeting specific actors, when you make these hyper overgeneralized claims, they're just false. They're false claims. Unsupported. Soldiers themselves admit to murdering children, and they're specifically ordered to do it. So here's the proposition. Israeli soldiers were generally / specifically ordered to murder children as children. Final assessment. No reviewed command order, ROE, or directive establishes a general instruction of that kind. So that's a non-factual claim. Misleading. Quote, they are the chosen people, so they can do whatever they want. They say Israel is allowed to ignore the directives of international law in any field it desires. Here's the proposition. The, quote, chosen people doctrine broadly explains Israeli conduct and disregard of international law. Final assessment. Jewish, quote, chosenness does not doctrinally mean a license to violate international law. Specific Israeli actors may invoke religious nationalist ideas in extreme ways, but the universal, quote, they formulation essentializes a heterogeneous population and tradition. This is also a major anti-Semitic flag. Unsupported. Israel destroys entire villages in Lebanon during 3 week ceasefire. Why is Israel trying to attack Lebanon? I guess just to invade and steal land. The proposition is Israel's reason for attacking Lebanon is simply to invade and steal land. Final assessment, territorial occupation and security zone conduct are real. The video explicitly phrases the singular motive as, I guess, and Israel publicly gives security/Hezbollah aims. Another unsupported claim by Dave in this most recent video. This is enormous evidence supporting Israel knowing what was going to happen and allowing it to happen. The proposition is Israeli leadership knew the October 7th attack would occur and deliberately permitted it. Final assessment, Israeli investigations document profound intelligence and command failures. The Nova probe reportedly found Hamas attackers did not know about the festival in advance and encountered it after deviating from their route, weakening the theory that the festival's placement proves a deliberate setup. I think that's an insane conspiracy theory, by the way. Should not be believed. It's 9/11 truthism BS. It's like believing that Mossad did 9/11. Didn't Dave say that once? Dave says, which is unsupported, hundreds of the civilian casualties were the fault of Israel due to both friendly fire as well as Hannibal Directive, which involves killing their own citizens on purpose to prevent their captivity. For the proposition, hundreds of October 7th civilian casualties were caused by Israeli friendly fire/Hannibal. Final assessment, the reviewed UN/forensic evidence does not establish the claimed 100-scale attribution. Unsupported. Misleading. Hundreds of the civilian casualties were the fault of Israel. Oh, okay. It's dealing with a different aspect of this. Misleading. The same claim we talked about at the top. So the proposition, a different proposition, the Hannibal Directive is accurately summarized as intentionally killing Israel's own citizens to prevent captivity. Hannibal-type doctrine accepts severe risk to captives to prevent abduction. It is not accurately reduced to a blanket directive to intentionally kill Israeli civilians. I hear a lot of misinformation about this, and a lot of people misunderstand the Hannibal Directive. More unsupported. Israel's PR machine is constantly scrubbing the internet of evidence of its genocide. The proposition is Israel's PR machine is constantly scrubbing the internet of evidence of genocide. The final assessment is documented takedowns do not establish a totalized, centrally coordinated, continuous scrubbing system with that scope. If anyone's confused at where this information is coming from, the source trail is here. So once this document is publicly available, and we will show the sources, the source ledger once we get to it. All of this stuff is being sourced, and the source trail will show you how to get to those sources. What else? More unsupported. They do have an outrageous level of control, most obviously in the media. So the proposition was Zionists exercise extraordinary control over Western media. No denominator, ownership census, editorial control metric, or coordination evidence establishes extraordinary Zionist control of the media as a system. JDA/Nexus specifically flag hidden control structures when Israel/Zionism functions as a surrogate for classic Jewish control tropes. We got some falsehoods here by Dave. Paramount, Warner Brothers, CBS, CNN, and HBO are all under one entity, owned by, can you guess who? Larry Ellison, the Zionist scumbag who bought TikTok. So the proposition Paramount, Warner Bros., CBS, CNN, and HBO are already under one completed Ellison-controlled entity. And the final assessment is the WBD transaction remained proposed/contested at the cutoff. The consolidation had not closed. So this is false. Now we're dealing with the same claim cluster. This other proposition that Larry Ellison personally bought TikTok. TikTok US is a multi-investor joint venture, and ByteDance retains a stake. The personal purchase formulation is inaccurate. False. Another unsupported claim by Dave. To say that the vast majority of mainstream media outlets are controlled by Zionists is not a effing conspiracy theory. It's a statement of fact. Quite obviously, control an enormous proportion of the media. So the proposition is a group defined as Zionist controls an enormous share of Western media. The claim supplies neither a defined media universe nor a reproducible rule for, quote, Zionist ownership, editorial control, coordination, or market share. Nexus/JDA warn that exaggerated hidden control claims about Israel/Zionism can reproduce classic anti-Semitic structures. Yeah, so this one here is an anti-Semitism flag. More unsupported claims. Zionists take over CBS, hire a massive Zionist stooge to run the news, and they immediately host the Zionist fraud, the government that is also held hostage by Zionists. The proposition is Zionists collectively control or hold hostage the U.S. government. No evidence reviewed establishes that Zionists collectively take over CBS or hold the U.S. government hostage. Nexus explicitly identifies hidden Jewish/Israel control of government/media as anti-Semitic when it reproduces the classic conspiracy structure, which I think Dave is doing here. So another anti-Semitism flag. %, identified as Zionist, 8% identified as non-Zionist, 7% identified as anti-Zionist, and 48% chose none of these labels. What was this? 48% of Jewish respondents affirmatively chose none of the Zionist, non-Zionist, anti-Zionist labels. This one I want to check because that might be an attribution error, but we will check that. I just want to triple check. Right. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Remember, something that you're going to see very often is that instead of actually dealing with the fact check itself, people are going to attack the fact checker or attack something about the fact checking process. They're going to want to avoid dealing with the actual findings of the fact check. So that will be a common signal you'll see from someone who is trying to control the narrative. They're not really interested in having a high resolution relationship with the actual facts, things that are actually going on in reality. They would prefer to stifle that effort. And one of the ways they'll do that is trying to direct you away from the actual factual information. So, but the people are who really do care, who might disagree with some of the facts, they will provide um, their counterfactuals, their counter evidence. They will actually deal with the information in the whatever's found in the fact finding venture. Dave says, and Zionism is responsible for the lion's share of actual anti Semitism that exists around the world. So the proposition most global anti Semitism is caused by Zionism/Israel. No global causal evidence establishes a lion's share. Anti Semitism predates modern political Zionism by centuries and arises from multiple ideological, religious, racial, conspiratorial, and political traditions. Um, we have a misleading claim here. Zionism is to Jewish supremacy as Nazism is to white supremacy. So the proposition Zionism is structurally equivalent to Nazism as a racial supremacist ideology. JDA does not make historical comparison automatically anti-Semitic. IHRA lists, IHRA is the one. I thought it was Nexus, but that was my mistake. IHRA lists Nazi comparisons as a contextual example of anti-Semitism. Independently, treating Zionism as a unitary Jewish supremacist ideology erases major ideological diversity within Zionism. Dave says, I didn't say simply European, I said largely European. That particular correction was correct, just looking at that thing, because Dave was, of course, not dealing with my robust, full analysis of the information and the report that was born out of that. Dave was dealing with my first initial transcript fact check, which I think after going through this, after analyzing all this, I think that is very dishonest of Dave to do that. Um, and so I didn't say simply European, I said largely European. This is also why these ancestry kits are tightly regulated in Israel. They don't want citizens to find out that they're not effing Middle Eastern. So the claim Israeli genetic testing restrictions exist to hide that citizens are not Middle Eastern. The regulatory restrictions do not establish Dave's asserted concealment motive. So the regulatory restrictions do not establish Dave's asserted concealment motive. That's motive attribution that Dave is engaging in, or he doesn't have any positive evidence to support that. Why is that buffering? Oh, okay, there we go. I thought Sonic was turned off for you guys. There we go. Oh, my screen went all low res for a second. Okay. I can watch it at probably that is fine. All right. Oh, cool. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being with me this evening. I appreciate it. Let's look at this qualified claim by Dave. Israel is actively training AI to deny genocide in Gaza through a technique called LLM poisoning. Proposition: Israeli government funded campaigns are attempting to seed pro Israel material into the online/AI information environment. Yes, they are attempting this. That is qualified. The final assessment: the operation reportedly generated more than 560,000 words of pro Israel content in 9 days and was intended to influence AI generated content/training ecosystems. This supports an attempted LLM/generative engine manipulation campaign. It does not establish that Israel directly retrained the underlying models or successfully compelled them to deny genocide. So one thing does not follow the other. Brad, here's unsupported. Brad Parscale and his firm Clock Tower X have spent tens of millions of dollars ensuring that AI searches spit out pro-Israel propaganda. So the proposition is the spending, quote, ensures that AI searches output pro-Israel propaganda. Final assessment: no evidence establishes deterministic control or guaranteed output effects. That evidence doesn't exist. Another unsupported claim. Second, there's no reason to believe that any ticket sales or money raised would go to charity as promised. So the proposition is Pangburn is not trustworthy to transmit future charity proceeds to the intended beneficiary. This is unsupported. Past business failure and unpaid obligations can justify neutral controls, such as direct to charity processing or escrow. They do not establish a future intention to divert charitable proceedings or proceeds. Sorry. Dave's claim is false. Pangburn philosophy totally imploded, and nobody wanted to touch this guy after all that. So Dave says after the collapse in 2018, no one was willing to work with Pangburn. The historical collapse and reputational damage are real topics, but one documented later collaboration is sufficient to falsify, quote, nobody wanted to touch this guy. Unsupported. Why the... Thought I was hearing my baby speaking in his bed, but he's good. He's sleeping. Got him on the monitor. The quote is, why the fuck would anyone believe that any money he could raise, which would be nowhere near $1 million, would actually go to where he says it would? So Dave is pointing to historical business failures, justified distrust of future charity handling. Historical non-payment/refund failures do not entail intended diversion of future charitable funds. They can rationally motivate safeguards without proving likely misappropriation. This one's unsupported. Travis tanked his business once before. He was given a second chance, and now he's tanking it again by running endless damage control for a sex pest, genocide denier. So the claim is Pangburn's present business is failing because of his destiny-related fact-checking. No revenue, solvency, booking, ticketing, liability, or enterprise value evidence establishes current business failure caused by destiny-related fact-checking. Yeah, Dave didn't provide any evidence as to why he believed that it's tanking or that I'm tanking it. Here we have just a blatant falsehood from Dave again. Engage with the arguments put forward by human rights organizations and genocide scholars who have confirmed that it is genocide. They have unanimously determined that it is genocide. So the proposition is that human rights organizations / genocide scholars have unanimously determined that Israel is committing genocide. The final assessment is no defined denominator supports literal that there's literally that this is unanimous. There are dissenting institutions and scholars. We read during the live stream that there's a long list of dissenting institutions and scholars. Most of those lists, by the way, include groups that have determined war crimes, some ethnic cleansing. Dave says Gaza is totally uninhabitable, therefore genocide. The proposition, Gaza is totally uninhabitable. The devastation and uninhabitable areas are extraordinary, but quote totally is a literal absolute not established by the evidence. And then the second claim, the physical destruction alone yields. The physical destruction alone yields, therefore, genocide. Destruction and conditions of life are major genocide evidence, but do not alone substitute for the legal specific intent analysis. So, yeah. Gaza is totally inhabitable, therefore genocide is just a misunderstanding of what's going to be required at the ICJ level when this goes to trial. Dave said every single one of the 700 schools has been bombed. 92% are destroyed. Education infrastructure has suffered near systemic damage, but the reviewed evidence does not establish a direct bombing of every school. And then about 92% of Gaza schools are destroyed and the rest are partially damaged. The cited evidence is closer to very high damage / affected shares, not 92% literally destroyed with the remainder partially damaged. Yeah. So Dave, I believe it was in the first video, he said this figure as well. 92% are destroyed. And no, that's not the case. I want to fix this one for the next version of the report. The next version will be the one that is publicized as a downloadable document once we fix some clarity on some of these things. Sure. Let's go to, oh yes, back to El Shifa. Dave says, the vast Hamas command center alleged beneath Al Shifa did not exist. Seems like there needs to be a continuation. Yeah, so this has to be fixed as well. The information is still correct, but for some reason it did not finish the quote. The quote is not complete. Okay, so, but we can still look at these. So Dave said the vast Hamas command center alleged beneath Al Shifa did not exist. So the proposition that Israel failed to substantiate the vast high-tech central Hamas command center at Al Shifa at the scale originally advertised, that is supported. The maximal pre-raid depiction was not demonstrated at the advertised scale. The other claim in this section, the Al Shifa military use story was wholly concocted out of thin air. There was zero meaningful evidence of Hamas military use. Tunnels, weapons, hostages, CCTV, and U.S. intelligence supported some Hamas PIG military use of the complex. So that part is false by Dave. Dave also said, this was wild. Dave also said, states don't have rights, people do. So proposition states possess no rights as a matter of international law. International law routinely attributes rights and duties to states. I see. Some of these. This is why we go through this. We want the entire. Oh. So this one was talking about states possess no rights as a matter of international law. International law routinely attributes rights and duties to states. That was a false claim. Obviously, states have rights. Anyone who says states don't have rights, that's just like a laughingly anti-academic thing to say. It's so low resolution, it's unbelievable. You'll learn about this in Political Science 101. Dave says an ICJ court case requires formal participation from Israel. These are going to be continued in the next version of this report, so we get the full thing. Israel has unilateral power the proposition that's being made is Israel has the unilateral power to indefinitely delay the ICJ genocide case. But the ICJ controls its own timetable. So that's false. Then Dave, from this same cluster, the ICJ already ruled that genocide itself is plausible/occurred. The ICJ held that at least some rights claimed by South Africa were plausible. The ICJ has never ruled that genocide is plausible, but people like Norman Finkelstein keep spreading that around. And I've in some research I've done on a lot of people who are engaging in anti-Semitism, a lot of them point to Norm Finkelstein as an authority on Israel Palestine. He is one of the biggest spreaders of misinformation on Israel Palestine that I have come across. Just take a look at the Hassan Finkelstein analysis I did. The document you can also download at pang-burn.com/analysis will demonstrate to you that the misinformation isn't only the problem, but after looking at the pattern and including the things that were said in that conversation with Hassan Piker, Norm Finkelstein, the evidence demonstrates that Norm Finkelstein is an explicit anti-Semite. Explicit. Full of misinformation. Full of it. And remember, one of the things you're going to see with regards to fact checking like this, trying to divert the conversation to attacking the person and not the information, attacking the person and not the arguments. People have been sending me evidence and screenshots of comments and chats they've seen. And it's very rare when people are actually dealing with the fact check information itself. They're trying to discredit me as a person, to some low resolution, more uneducated people. They might be tricked by that, but most of the Pangburn audience is not going to be fooled by that. Like, they're going to see through that noise. They're going to see the logical fallaciousness of that. Yeah, can you imagine Dave said states don't have rights? That blew my mind. And he said it with such confidence into his microphone. It's not like he made a mistake in can you imagine being at a political science conference and Dave stands up and he says, states don't have rights. Such a anti-scientific thing to say. It really is. Dave says that he was exchanging pornographic material with a minor was confirmed in court. And there was a graphic visual overlay identified by Pangburn in the live reaction, quote, proven true in the court of law. So Dave's claim, the court adjudicated that Destiny exchanged pornography with a minor. False. Fail. The court denied both parties' Rule 11 sanctions motions without prejudice. It did not adjudicate the minor allegation true. Permission to plead or amend party filings, deposition testimony, and a later sanctions hearing are not merits findings. My live reaction correctly states that the court had not issued a merits finding proving the causal chain. So people who are going around spreading misinformation, um, about this and saying like CSAM, CSAM, there's like Dave was doing. I mean, like so many people get away with defamatory shit nowadays. They just say things on the internet without any consequences. I get it. And that, but this is the important thing, is that people just shouldn't believe that kind of stuff unless it's actually substantiated. So someone saying something like, and this isn't like any like just ordinary run of the mill claim like Destiny likes Coca-Cola. No, he likes Pepsi. And you haven't examined the evidence. But like for things like this, like if you're going to adopt a belief about that, about someone, like the first thing my mind goes to when someone makes a claim like that, and I'm like, has this been demonstrated? There were a lot of people who thought that like, no, it's obvious. Like, uh, Destiny at one time said something on a podcast where it sounded like he was saying he had possession of CSAM, but he later clarified that he never had um, in his possession anything like that. That's not what it was. So um, that doesn't mean that as this trial proceeds, maybe it will be demonstrated that Stephen had it in one of these folders or files and he didn't know he had it, or he had it, or maybe he had it and deleted it. Maybe he still has it. Like, we're in the realm of modal possibility, right? But what matters is what should matter to you epistemologically is what can actually be demonstrated in this professional court proceeding. The professional courts and the judges are well suited and equipped to evaluate the evidence in these cases and what's relevant. I think there's a sea of people out there that desperately want it to be true, like the hardcore Destiny haters, right? They just want it to be true that he has it. Yeah, that's the kind of guy he is. But, you know, at the end of the day, if that doesn't get demonstrated, are you gonna change your belief, or are you just gonna believe, nope, I know he had it? Well, how do you know? I just know he's that kind of person. It's like, oh, okay. If that's the kind of epistemology um, you want to operate under, you're going to fall victim to all kinds of bullshit, especially on the internet. You should care about whether the proposition corresponds to the actual objects in reality that are included in that proposition. So, debunked, another unsupported claim. And they role played molesting their kids. Then they also pretend to be the kids themselves. So the proposition is that role play establishes actual child abuse or molestation. Uh, Fantasy content does not establish real world abuse without independent evidence. And they role played molesting their kids. Yeah, there's also this also hasn't been demonstrated. When I looked into this, there was this ex-husband, this scorned ex, who told this other guy that this thing happened, um, to dealing with molesting kids or fantasies of molesting kids, but none of that has ever been demonstrated. None of it. And he also the ex husband. This was as in the case pertaining to Brit. Sometimes I get really bad back spasms and they hit me like a chunk of lightning. Oh, ow! That one hit me. Ugh. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. Ugh, those hurt. Just gonna mute my mic for a second and have a bite of food. It'll just take me a minute. Alrighty. Maybe I just needed a couple bites of taco. All right. There's a claim by Dave, real anti-Semitism doesn't matter to Destiny, especially when it comes to having sex. Nothing actually matters to a sociopath like him, except his fetishes and petty grievances, except having sex. Yeah, what did he flash on the screen again? It was just he flashed something of like maybe like one of Destiny's ex-lovers, and was he insinuating that um they're a real anti-Semite? So the proposition is Destiny is indifferent to genuine anti-Semitism while manufacturing accusations against political enemies. One clip exchange does not establish. Okay, by the way, this was in reference to the Myron Gaines thing when Destiny was like, "Who cares about anti-Semitism?" But that's basically all we got to hear. We didn't get the context there, so I don't know what they were talking about. Maybe anti-Semitism wasn't relevant to the topic, and that's why Destiny was saying, "What about anti-Semitism?" But the clip was so cherry picked that we didn't get the context. That's another thing that's going to give like critical thinkers raise red flags in them from like a propaganda perspective. If you don't give the context and you're just like hitting them with something that, for someone that's not doing their own thinking, that you're doing their thinking for them, you're just hitting them with that dopamine. So they're like, oh yeah, yeah, give me more of that propaganda. Dave says he has nothing but fake accusations of anti-Semitism, while Destiny is a sexual predator and genocide apologist. So the insinuation is that Pangburn's anti-Semitism findings are nothing but fake accusations. The reports contain proposition-level evidence and framework analysis. Disagreement over classification cannot make the entire evidentiary record non-existent. But Dave's just trying to hand wave away the IHRA, JDA, Nexus determinations of anti-Semitism there, I think. Okay, cool. We made it to Appendix B, which is the quote lock register. Now, a lot of those shortened quotes we saw before, you would find the full quote in this register. But one update I'm going to make to this particular analysis is I want to see the whole quote in the actual the lists of claims here, the list adjudications. I want to see the actual full claims there as well, because I just think it's more clear than if people don't have to go down here to find the actual full version. Yeah, because some of them are long. But I would just rather that section be longer. How do you guys rate this particular Super Mario World game, by the way, compared to other Mario games? I remember like playing this when I was younger, but even though like when I watch it back now, it's like, man, like how was I not like, this does not stick in my memory as much as like Super Mario 3, for example. But I mean, this is a more advanced game. But I think I really like this game too. I mean, the implementation of Yoshi is really cool. Yeah. I was saying the other day to a friend of mine that I can't wait to so my son Aegean is going to be 2 in on December 20th. I'm going to be really excited to replay all these games with him. Jason says, not my genre. What is your genre? What do you like? Someone says, in my memory as a kid when I got my SNES and played Magical, I remember it fondly. Sorry, and played Magical. Is Magical a game? The map. Yeah, the map was really cool. All right. What else we got to go through? Appendix C is the source and integrity register. So all the sourcing will be here. First, you'll see all transcripts from all of my live fact checking here. That's what these 5 PDFs are. You'll have the Destiny Loves Genocide version 2, which we use as formatting method baseline. And then we have Everything is Crumbling for Destiny and Pangburn transcript there. And everything else one would need. All of our sources. Yeah, and then it finished with Appendix D, which is limitations, holds, and correction policy. Yeah, so that's that. So we are going to update this. We got a few edits to make just to make this optimal. But we did go through 103 claim clusters. 24 were supported, 8 qualified, but 53 had material defects. So yeah, the overwhelming amount of the information was misleading, unsupported, and false. Yeah, I'm having back spasms right now. I hate that. Like electric shocks right up my back. Well, we got through that anyway. Oh, you followed up, said, if I have to go back and play platform games, I'd play this one. Yeah, it's a great game. I apologize for my bad grammar. I meant to describe it as magical. Yeah, definitely a magical game. Someone said I would take Dave more seriously if he wasn't so venomous about it. Can't last 5 minutes through any of his Destiny videos due to how emotionally charged he comes across. Yeah, I mean, I think this whole process has been important. Maybe you want to watch my analysis videos. They're much slower, but maybe breaking that up will help. But I agree that, like, I think Dave would be taken more seriously academically if he cut out a lot of these issues and de-propagandized his delivery and so many things. Jason says, what do you think is the root problem for poor epistemic consistency? Do you think it's ego, lack of discipline, or something else? I think it's ultimately lack of being virtuous to your epistemic standards, like actually committing to them and holding yourself, accountable in a logically consistent way. So really, what are we talking about? We're talking about rationality. So if you claim to be a science communicator, if you claim to use science as a way of knowing, and then you pump out something like Dave has pumped out with these videos, there's an obvious irrationality there. Like how are you justifying this? How do you sleep at night? Like, how do you find this virtuous? When I give these obvious corrections, and I'm not saying I'm perfect in any regard, but I try my best to hold to my highest epistemic standards of correspondence criteria of truth being made primary, empiricism, science is a way of knowing, hold myself accountable to that, because I want to know that my normative positions as a moral well-beingist are actually grounded in the actual facts of what's actually going on in reality. Someone said, "Does your AI model cite and show its work?" Yes, of course. My only concern is just totally relying on what it says without checking on how it could got to that conclusion. No, yeah. So there's a huge lack of. It reminds me when the internet first became publicly available, that the ignorance surrounding the internet, how to operate the internet in a safe and healthy way, all of these things was incredibly high. And that's the same for AI tools. But AI tools, AI agents can be trained to perform research at academic PhD level. We're already there, but they have to be trained. They have to be checked, like the checking we do here, the checking I do on the audits, source checking, all of that stuff, cross checking with other systems, um, and yeah, if you go to pang-burn.com/analysis, at the very top of the page, you can download the Pangburn AI system uh, PDF, and that will show you exactly how it functions. And I'm about to actually update that report, but it will also give you a prompt so that you can go to your own LLM models and train and prompt your own AI research agents. Um, AI agents at high resolution academic spaces are already being implemented by authors, by researchers. Um, it's going to take time for people to get educated on how to use these tools so that you program out the sycophantry, you program out the hallucinations. You know what's really hard to program hallucinations and sycophantry out of? Human beings. Much harder than it is to program that stuff out of AI systems. Much harder. It kind of makes me chuckle when people say, they come up to me and they're like, "Wait, you're using AI?" First of all, to my ears, because I'm very well educated on how to use AI tools in a sophisticated way, that's like saying people coming up to me and saying, um, "You use the internet?" You can use the internet in a way that leads you to Alex Jones and believing in Alex Jones as your savior of information, and lead you to anti-vax material, lead you to even worse material on the dark web. AI tools can, if used stupidly or used recklessly or used unethically, same thing. But that's all user error. You need to look at AI tools like the internet. That's that's the way to look at it. That's the analogy that works, I think. And I think AI technology will be orders of magnitude more impactful on humanity than the internet, which is saying a lot. I understand, but uh, yeah, someone just said awesome work. I'm not AI cynical. That's good. I think it's not great. I think it's got great potential. Just people tend to rely uncritically on it as opposed to using it as a tool. Exactly. That's a big problem. That's a big problem. Um, like, yeah, if you go to like the free version of ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or any of these things, it's not that they're just going to feed you horseshit, but um, not using the tools for specific reasons and relying on the tools for too much. Like, it's the same problem as like scrolling on Facebook as your primary way of trying to support your social health, you're going to become socially ill eventually if that's your primary way. Um, yeah, it's just there's if you if you're using Grok the same way you would use Google AI or something to like summarize something, you're generally going to get still pretty accurate information. But if you're going for rigor, if you're going for I want to use AI tools as teammates, not as um my my teacher or my you know as my god, right? Or as my as the dictator, you know, that would obviously be silly. Well, I shouldn't say obviously because unfortunately people are using these tools like that. But people shouldn't assume that is the problem with the tools themselves. Just like the internet is not the problem. Human beings who use the internet for bad and wrongful things is the problem. Uh, Jason says, I suspect they are designed to validate you, though. No, that's a common conspiracy theory. Um, the sycophantry issue is something that there's actually good financial incentive to want to uh, try to get the system away from doing that. So if you read articles and statements from companies, there's a conspiracy theory going around that like, oh yeah, the AI companies just want to like create tools that are going to tell people what they want to hear with regards to facts and things like that. You can gaslight systems into doing that the same way you can go to corners of the internet to find the kind of information that you want to be true. So all of that stuff, yeah, but at the end of the day, all of this comes down to learning how to use the tool in a way that serves your purposes. But if you are operating on flawed purposes, whether knowingly or unknowingly, then the output you're going to get from the tool is uh, either going to be bad or good depending on your purposes. So at the end of the day, it's up to the user. Are you using these things in an educated way? I'm actually enjoying watching the Mario here. Yeah, but there is no like uh mustache twisting evil character at the top of AI being like, uh yeah, I'm going to create this thing. Like I'm not saying it's impossible, like it's not that there aren't the possibilities of these bad actors in the AI space and the development space. Of course, the same as the internet, right? Just think of it as the internet. But when it comes to the internet, it would be ridiculous to say like the mustache twisting entity at the top of the internet is trying to make people sick or to fuck people up by way of the internet. It's just like the wrong way of thinking about the tool. Yeah, isn't that funny? Mike Guy says Dave himself kind of proved that applies to pretty much all information. Man's pretty much reached all of his conclusions by reading headlines from biased news articles and using that as an argument. Well, I don't know where he's gotten all this information. I can't draw those conclusions that you've drawn there, but Dave does prove by his own behaviors with regards to this first initial Israel Palestine video, Destiny Loves Genocide, and this follow-up that he is performing way worse than even like basically trained AI tools would perform with regards to these facts in question about Israel, Palestine, Destiny's cases, lawsuits, my history, you know, the business issues I had in 2018. Someone says, how do you have 238,000 subs but only 43 viewers? Well, I've only started regularly live streaming recently. I used to live stream a bit intermittently. But I've kind of been inspired to, in the past month or so, partly because of Dave's first initial video, that I felt it was important to deal with all the misinformation, anti-Semitism, and propaganda in that video. And a lot of the subscribers here at Pangburn are not subscribed because they want to hear from me as the producer of a lot of the events that they've come to know and love throughout the years. Like, a lot of the subscribers are Jordan Peterson fans or Sam Harris fans, or fans of debate in general, fans of Destiny, fans of Alex O'Connor because of the very successful debate we produced between him and Dinesh D'Souza. A lot of different mix of people. Pangburn audience is mix of many different people because we work with a wide range of different people. And one of the reasons that causes us to grow very, very, very slowly is, well, one of the big reasons is because I like to give my opinions on politics and philosophy, and that often, if there are, let's say, if someone came from an Alex O'Connor video and subscribed to Pangburn, and they, you know, they like God debates, and they like Alex O'Connor because he's an atheist and he debates theists and things like that. And if I come on and I say something, you know, like I generally critique Jordan Peterson a lot. Him and I disagree on a lot, but there are some times where I will point out that where Jordan Peterson was actually correct about this. And then it might be during a live stream or on a video, and then someone in the comment section or in the live stream will be like, you agree with Jordan Peterson on something? I can't believe I came to this channel. Unsubscribed. So that happens. There's that. And there's also the case too that like a huge portion of people that come to watch our live event releases aren't even subscribers to the channel. Like for the Konstantin Kisin and Destiny debate, such a huge portion of them are not even subscribed to the channel. And some of those people surely would be people who have seen Pangburn events before. Maybe they were subscribers at some time, but they didn't like that sometimes we would, you know, post Destiny content, right? I've lost hundreds of subscribers for fact checking and calling out Dave for the recent stuff. There's been, you know, hundreds of subscribers lost for that, and I understand. There are some people out there who are under the belief, when they see me engaging in something like this kind of fact checking, they will kind of buy into that idea that I'm a shill for Israel, or you know, I'm a genocide denier. That gets thrown around a lot about me, but I haven't denied genocide. I've simply said that it's irresponsible to determine genocide until the actual investigation and that evidence is at an expert level examined and judged upon, which the ICJ is equipped to do. No other organization is equipped to do that because Israel isn't going to give their evidence and counter evidence that's so important to this trial um, to anyone but the ICJ. Um, yeah, but for me, it's not about apologizing for any Israeli atrocities that have occurred, and I've gone through a lot of information, and I think Israel and the leadership have a lot to answer for with regards to some of these war crimes. And look, when it comes to war, there are it's not a rare occurrence where a particular war crime will be the fault of one soldier or one commander or and but the point is all of that needs to be identified, adjudicated. It's really important. Someone said Sam Harris fan here. Yeah, I'm still a fan of Sam Harris, even though him and I have had our public breakup, and we had some really good times together. I still remember the first time I met Sam in the hotel bar for the first event we did together, and then we did something like 9 or 10 events, something like that. I forget the actual final count, but I think Sam's a good person. I have my negative opinions about Sam with regards to some stuff that happened between us, but I will save those for a different time. It's important for us not to be consumed by our negativity bias. We have to let our positivity breathe. We got to let our positivity breathe. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think Alex O'Connor is great. I think he is a great bridge between mid resolution and high resolution philosophy and argumentation. It's a great thing he's doing. I hope to do more work with Alex in the future. We don't have anything necessarily planned, but we are in contact still, and yeah, I'm excited to get some more touring going with Destiny. But he has told me he wants to wait until his current legal situation is finished up before we book any long stretches of dates. But we do have him on stage on September 18th and 19th in Vancouver, which is going to be a hell of a time. We're in this church venue for 2 days. The first day is going to be Alex, Destiny, and Kyla Turner on stage, Not So Erudite. They'll be debating each other a little bit. There will be opportunities for audience members to debate them. I will have a long list of questions that I think will prompt some debate between them as well. And then the day after will be the main event between him and Ezra Levant, which will be really interesting. Ezra Levant is one of the big conservative figures in Canada. He is the owner and operator of Rebel News, the biggest conservative news outlet, to my understanding, in Canada. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's always fun when Destiny has 4 hours on stage with a hardened conservative. Although conservative in Canada is a bit different than conservative in the United States. Definitely. Conservatives and like the liberals in Canada, my impression of that whole thing is that those both sides are almost kissing lips on most issues. There are a few wedge issues, and the radical political engagement is not like the United States, but those who are more radical in Canada are in very, very fringe groups. That's been my experience. I don't have a good empirical handle on that yet. I plan on getting it before I head back to my home city of Vancouver from Oaxaca here. But yeah, I'm actually thinking that it might be cool to do a Pangburn event here in Oaxaca, Mexico, in my new home city. Might be cool to do a conference here or something. But yeah, that's what we have coming up next for live events, and we have a few more things on the docket. I'm pretty sure you guys and watching this Mario has fixed my back spasms. All stress related, I'm sure. Well, it's getting late, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate that, as always. Make sure you smash that like button before we shut down here. It helps the algorithm. Dropping a comment under the live stream video helps the algorithm as well after. Share it around. If you're on X, I always post these streams on X as well. Yeah. And I don't know what we'll stream tomorrow. I have to think about that. Who knows? Maybe Dave was cooking something up for tomorrow. Anyways, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a good night. As always, please make sure you're out there maximizing well-being, physical, mental, and social health.